Take a deep breath. It's been a long 2 days. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Raymond Jallow. I'm the national president of the ADC. Thank you. And it's my extreme pleasure to welcome everyone to the very first post-COVID ADC Live event. I hope everybody made it through happy and healthy, or at least healthy. I don't know if any of us were really happy about the situation. And I know a lot of us suffered greatly during this last COVID period. Some of us losing some loved ones. And it's been a very tragic 2 years. But we're here now. We're honoring several incredible people. At the same time, we have Aaron with us, who's going to help us celebrate life a little bit and laugh a little bit, something we desperately need after 2 years of lockdown. And inshallah, that would be the end of the lockdown, but you never know. I'd like to start out, first and foremost, by thanking certain individuals, specifically first my staff, who worked tirelessly to put this together. A couple of them are here right now with us. Nabil Muhammad, I can't see if Nabil's in the room or not. Chris Habibi, who's our newest member. And of course our local staff, Doris Bitar and Talar Semi. So if you guys are here, stand up, give your applause. I don't see you guys. So the other thing is, I also want to thank a couple of our staffers who were unable to make it here, but they've also been working very hard. In fact, some of them are at home on their computers right now watching this because we're streaming it live. They're tweeting and they're on social media. We have Abed Ayub, who's our legal director. Janan Spat, who's our organizer. And of course, Nahla Abu Tabla, who is our communication person. And of course, this event would not be possible if it wasn't for our local chapters and our supporters here. We have our 3 chapters, and their presidents are here. Eugenie Tuma from San Diego. Salim Erkat from Orange County. And Katia Bakrush from LA. And for the rest of the chapter members, I can't name all of you, but you guys are in my gratitude and my debt. You guys have really put out for us and done a great job, and we thank you for welcoming us here. With that, we decided to start the evening off with a little bit of culture and poetry. So I would like to, at this point, invite Mr. Michael Odeh to come and read a poem by Alex.
So this is a poem that Alex's brother had the painful privilege of sharing 35 years ago at the very first Alex Odeh Memorial Banquet. It's called "We Shall Return, and Our Eyes Shall Embrace the Moon." I, my dear brother, in spite of my wounds, will not rest. I will not fear death, nor will I fear the fate of the damned. I will never surrender. With my head held high, I will walk to the borders. I will walk to the den where my family awaits me like good soldiers. We shall free the land. We shall strike with the force of the anger that's grown through all the years. We shall clean the fields, and we shall rise with clear victory. We shall avenge the oppressed, the wretched life of the refugees, the homeless who have been forced to roam the land, the right of the fetus to be born. For the pride of my wounds rejects moaning. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. How are you? Good to be here. It's good to be out anywhere, isn't it? I haven't left my house in 13 years. It's been 13 years. No, it's felt like 13 years since I've been in front of people. And right now I'm starting to wonder if it was a good idea, but I am really happy to be here. My name is Aaron Cater. I'm Palestinian. Any Palestinians here? And my mom is not a Palestinian. She's white bread Mormon from Utah. Are there any Palestinian Mormons here? That's a big group of people. They love comedy. A lot of people hear me. I've seen some old friends and people who I know. Hopefully I'll meet some of you guys as well. And we have some honorees that are exciting. I was excited to meet one at my table. So I'm happy to mess up their intros and mess up their names and screw up my ability to MC tonight. That's my goal here tonight, is to really make this night feel like the MC was just part of the problem. You know what I mean? That's what I'm here for. One of my favorite things about being around Arabs is Arabs, they don't like that. You'll never hear an Arab say something like, I don't want to talk, I will just listen. You know, it's not something you always hear. And you hear Arabs a lot will just be overly honest, right? You look bad. You don't look good. You look old. I saw an old friend out there. You don't look good. You know, and you're just thinking, yeah, I probably shouldn't have left the house. I have a Lebanese wife, and when you get married to a Lebanese woman, you got two choices. Save up money, buy a house, or just keep buying makeup. And we have a 5-year-old who got into her makeup kit and just destroyed everything. And, you know, I've seen a lot of Arabs experience tragedy, but when you see a Lebanese woman, when you see her eyeliner all cracked up all over the floor and the kid's got it all over her face, it's like a different Nakba for a Lebanese woman when her eyeliner is no longer of use. You know, I don't know what. She still hasn't left the house. You can't spell quarantine without Quran. And I took that to heart. I memorized Quran 5 times over the pandemic. And I'll do it again too. I'm sure that was a good joke. I'm sure of it. I spent a lot of, did you guys spend a lot of time at home, by the way? Arabs don't like to just be stuck at home. They like to get out. They like to mix it up. They like to play cards. They like to see their families. I mean, have you ever gone anywhere with an Arab who was like, hey, let's just, you and me just hang out? That's not how Arabs do it. It's like, hey, you want to hang out? Sure. And you think it's just going to be you and them, and then you show up and there's 10 people there. And half of them are your cousins, and you didn't know that you were going to see half of your family that night. So Arabs like to mix it up, but I don't have a ton of family out here. I grew up on the East Coast and around Washington, D.C. Anybody from there? Yep. Yeah. What a redneck place that is, huh? They think it's not the South, it's the South. Hey, Phil, Maryland's in the South, isn't it? Yeah, people don't think Maryland's the South. I worked a job with this one guy in Virginia, just outside of D.C. He started every sentence with hell and he'd end it with shit. And he just talked like that. Hey, hell, it's right out here today, you shit. I'm like, I thought I was in a suburban area. Hey, hell, yeah, shit. Like, that's the way he talked. It's a very redneck place. But anyway, back to my quick story. Hey, is everybody enjoying their salad, by the way? Did anybody need dressing? Does anybody need a refill? Would you like any booze? Ma'am, you look like you might need a drink. Yeah. Hey, I'll hook you up. I'll take you for a little walk over there, we'll get a drink. Man, I haven't had a drink in 40 years. Yeah, we have these two little kids at home. Khalas, I'm done with it, man. I've had it. My wife's a nurse. She was out working, and I got stuck at home. I didn't mind, I wanted to be a dad, but I didn't really want to be a mom. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be stuck at home. And I was stuck at home learning to bake bread. I started an Etsy page. I started selling my wares. Got me nowhere, but I finished all of Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and Disney and Apple Plus. I finished everything you could watch, and I still, this entire time, have not read a book. Do you know anybody who's just like, I finished 15 books over the quarantine? You did. You don't have good internet. You did both? Oh, so you watched the book and then you watched the movie? Which movie was better than the book? Does anything stand out? Yeah, no, because it never goes that way. It's always the book was better, wasn't it? Well, what was a book that the movie was pretty good compared to the book?
White Tiger.
White Tiger. Sounds a little naughty. I don't know if it does or not, I'm just saying. What is White Tiger?
It's about
An England guy.
Indian.
Oh, Indian guy. Yeah, I've known one of those. Oh, I like it. Oh, yeah, now we're getting naughty. Ooh, political corruption. Yeah, you get me excited. Well, I'll check it out. I didn't know about that. Has anybody here seen White Tiger, the movie? Okay, just so you know, the book was better. The book was better. Did you guys watch the Olympics over the summer?
Yeah.
Now that was a better book, to be honest. I actually like the book on that much, much more. Is anybody streaming the Dodger game right now? Does anybody care about baseball? Thank you. I don't know what's going on, but the San Francisco Giants and the Dodgers are playing. It should be very much more important to you guys. Let's see here. I did want to mention, though, that being a Palestinian comedian is it's great because nobody's ever seen that, and unless you're in front of an Arab crowd, then they'll be like, my uncle is very funny. He's a comedian. But you never get a lot of follow-up questions when people, forget comedian, but when you're Palestinian in America, if you say you're Palestinian in conversation, what is generally the reaction? Oh, great. That's fantastic. There's rarely a follow-up question. There's rarely a reaction like, oh, how interesting, fascinating. Oh, one of my friends is, my dentist. You don't hear, you usually just get like a really muted sort of, oh, okay. That's a difficult situation. It's not like if you're Italian or Irish. If you're an Italian, people start bonding and everything else. But when you're Palestinian, there's not a lot of people going, hey, yeah, I'm with you people. Yeah, we're all together. Hey, yeah, all right. Hey, my friend, guys, get over here. It's the Palestinian, paisan over here. You just don't get that. You get a lot of hurt feelings is what you get. So if it's very difficult to talk about being a Palestinian, imagine what it's like to be one, right? In Palestine even. I was over there just a couple of years ago, and it was great. It was fantastic. I didn't get arrested, and I didn't spend any time in jail. But had I spent time in jail, I definitely would have gotten a tattoo of probably a white tiger, is what I was thinking. That's what I probably would have done. Has anybody ever heard of the ADC before? Are you guys longtime supporters? These events are always so fun. So many drunk Arabs. A lot of dancing. Is there going to be dancing tonight, by the way? We should make this happen. I think. Miss, with the drinks. Yes, the drinks, man. The dancing. Yeah, she's got it. She's ready. Okay, well, I'm gonna keep the show moving. Obviously, this was the high point for me, but and maybe for you guys. But see, there's my friend. But there's not a. What is the meal tonight, by the way? It's chicken. How do you say chicken in Arabic? That's right. You are correct. When I was in Palestine just a couple of years ago, I noticed that every Arab food, it always starts with an M. So many. Probably more M's than any other letter in the alphabet. So I made the list. It's Mindi, Mashi, Mlokhia, Mansif, Mahluba, Mjaddara, Msakhan, Mftul, Manaish, Mushawi, Mashekala, Mazza, Majanat, Malfouf, Moch. Man, have you guys ever eaten moch? That was one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. My family, and they're falahs. Like falahs. Like they killed, like they made the 13-year-old kill the lamb. Like they didn't even do it themselves. No, he's old enough, make him do it. And they made the kid do it, and then they killed it, and then we're all sitting around this, in the old village, and Shafat, and they're like, Harun, you like moch? And I'm like, I don't know, what is moch? They're like, laughing at me, with my LA hat and everything. And then they just put us, they'd been smoking the head of the lamb, and they just threw it in the smoker for I don't know how long. And then they just threw the lamb head, the decapitated, just right in front of me on a plate. Like I knew what I was going to do with that. You guys ever try to eat something that's looking at you? I'm sure you have. And then they just crack it open and they pull out the moch. And like, anytime there's a weird food that you don't know what to do with, there's always some like Haji in the back who goes, if you eat that, it make you strong. Right? It's always some old Haj who's like, make you strong. And when you're a kid, you're like, yeah, strong, muscles. And then you get older and you're like, you dirty old Haj, I know what you're talking about. I know what you were thinking. Arabs don't talk about this strong in any other way. Anyway, moch, mutabal, malfouf, sareen. The sareen, there's another one. Mishmish, Maz, Manezara, huh? Did I forget one? Majboos. Did I say that one? Magdoos. Yeah, the Big Mac, and McDonald's. McDonald's is there too. They're big Magdoos. And baked dog. No, I'm just joking. I never ate those. That they tried to feed them to me, but I wouldn't eat it. But of all of those, I would have to say Msahab is is that your favorite? Msahab. Yeah, and if you go to the Emirates or any other Arab country, they're like, our food in the Emirates is a margoug. What is margoug? Like if you don't know what it is, it's always meat and rice. Don't get ahead of yourself, Emirates. I mean, everybody gets all so excited about our national dish is matrutha. What the heck is that? It is lamb with rice. Oh yeah, you guys invented that, huh? Why don't you build a building about it, huh? All right, any Emirates here? Any Emiratis here? Can we just talk about them? They're not here. What are they going to do about it? Donate money? I'm going to donate money so they won't make fun of us. All right, well, let's move it on. I think they're really warm, especially this girl. She's warmed up. She's really ready to do this. So who am I bringing up? I'm going to bring up our first award presenter, and she is one of the chair or she's the coordinator of the event, guys. That's what she is. And it's a real pleasure to bring her up. You guys put your hands together for Doris. Yeah, guitar. I was going to say guitar. Hi, Doris. How are you?
Hi everyone. So this award, I'm Doris Guitar, I'm the California organizer. These two awards are for excellence in journalism. And I'll tell you quickly, in 2 minutes, why. They're going to go to two people who are the opinion editors of the San Diego Union Tribune, whom the ADC has... I'll ask them to come up in a moment. So, we've had a relationship with the San Diego Union Tribune for many, many years. I don't know, 25, 30 years. And we've always been trying to get Arab voices into the paper. And we've met with the staff, and we've occasionally gotten opinion pieces in or stories. And then after 9/11, it was quite hard, even though they were open. But it just didn't happen until about 1.5 years ago. And Matt Hall, who is the director of the whole Union Tribune, as well as the senior opinion editor, who we'd been meeting with, something about the pandemic, or I don't know what, maybe he can tell us. But the whole newspaper changed. And from going from 2 opinion pieces a year to over 30 in the last 1.5 years. And we had one yesterday, written by 3 young people in San Diego. And now I'm on the Union Tribune Advisory Board with other people, and the voices of everyone in the community has been uplifted. And there's a conversation with the paper about word usages. What's the best way to spell Quran? What is, we have debates about words that are used for certain things and not for other things, and we want to be consistent, and we're learning from each other. So I'm very heartened. Now also, I have a very close relationship with Laura Castaneda, who is also an opinion editor. And we've gotten to know each other, and tonight's the first night we've met, because of COVID. And I just want to say what this paper has done, San Diego Union Tribune, is like doing aerial backflips to change the course of how a regional newspaper can work with its community. And so they win the Excellence in Journalism Award from the ADC, and I'd like them to come up here and receive their gifts.
Doris, thank you very much for those kind words. And because I'm limited to 2 minutes, I want to explain exactly why we're amplifying more people's voices than we ever have, other than to say we should have been doing it all along. And I do think that the pandemic had something to do with it. The death of George Floyd had something to do with it. People need to start talking to one another. People need to start listening to one another, comedians' jokes aside. And I just want to say, I'm not going to hog the mic, we've got a long night ahead of us, but I'm a journalist, so I do like to hear my own voice sometimes when we're sharing other people's voices. And I do say this week in particular is a good week to be talking about journalism. 2 journalists just won the Nobel Peace Prize 2 days ago. Thank you. Yeah, please. I actually interviewed one of them this year, and that's what I just want to talk to you a little bit about. Maria Ressa, who is a force of nature. She's amazing. She's convicted of cyber crimes in the Philippines, and if she were, she's convicted of one. If she were to be convicted of all of them, she would end up spending 100 years in prison if she served them sequentially for doing her job, right? And so I asked her, I was like, I'm what kind of journalist who is anxious about spelling a name wrong? Like, that's what gives me a panic attack at 3 in the morning when I wake up. You're looking at spending 2 lifetimes in prison. How do you get through the day? And this is what she told me, and I just want to share it because it's short and it's a good message for all of us. She said, I take everything a day at a time at this point in time. I try very hard to commit each day to sticking to my values. And then she said, democracy will not survive if it is only the journalists speaking truth to power. So I'm up here to accept the award for Laura and me and my team, and for the Union Tribune, and for the community of San Diego. We are focused on amplifying other people's voices every day, but the message I want to leave is speak to us, talk to us, support local news. When you leave here tonight, call a reporter, find a reporter on Twitter, reach out to each other. It doesn't have to be a journalist. Have these conversations because they are important, and you need to speak to us, we need to speak to each other, we need to speak to everyone, we need to speak truth to power like Maria does, and that's how we're going to have a better place for all of us and our children to live. This means a lot to me. Thank you, guys.
Good evening. Thanks, Matt. That was right on. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes when we show up to work every day, and we're not even in person anymore, so the last year and a half has been very strange. And I do want to accept this on behalf of our team. There's a team of 7 of us: Steve Breen, Chris Reed, Andrew Kleski, Christy Totten, Matthew, and myself. And we talk a lot about issues, and having brought Doris into our lives at the San Diego Union Tribune, I can't speak highly enough of how she is a force within herself. When I first came over to the Union Tribune, I called an Arab American journalist friend of mine in San Diego, and I said, you know, I'm here, and my passion, my job is to find voices in different communities who are often left out of the conversation. Who in the Arab American community in San Diego should I be looking for? Who should I talk to? How can I find out more? And she said, call Doris. And I called Doris, and Doris has never stopped fighting for her community, bringing issues to the table. We don't publish every single thing that she brings to the table because we can't. We're trying to amplify all voices. But she doesn't take no for an answer. She's an advocate for all of you and for the community, and that's what we need in a newspaper that's going to represent all the voices in San Diego. So it's really important. Muchas gracias. Thank you. Shukran.
Thank you, Doris. Okay, we're going to try to move along as fast as I can, but we do have some dignitaries that we would like to recognize and thank them for being here with us. First is Faisal Al-Huli, the General Counsel of Kuwait. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name, Mr. General Counsel. Also with us, of course, we have the Superior Court Judge of Los Angeles, Judge James Cato, a former award winner of the Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you so much for your continued support of Judge Cato. With us we have Mr. Al Jaber, who's the Deputy Chief of Staff. I have to get this right because I don't want to get any titles wrong. He's a member of the Board of Trustees of Anaheim Union High School District Board and Deputy Chief of Staff of Orange County Supervisor and Vice Chair Doug Chafee, and also a candidate for the Anaheim City Council. So thank you, Mr. Odeh, for being here with us. We also, who I'd like to sort of to call up to the stage at this point is Mr. Alex Kim, who's the District Director for Assemblymember Cody Cody Petrie Norris. Sorry about that. He's got something to share with us.
Good evening. My name is Alex Kim. I'm the District Director on behalf of the State of California, Assemblymember Cody Petrie Norris. Don't worry, their name gets confused, mispronounced all the time, so it's all right. Great. So I'm here on her behalf. Thank you so much for inviting her office. I know she's a good friend of Rima, and asked me to attend here. Before I'll just read off the certificate, but just want to say, in our district, we represent the 74th district, which covers from Huntington Beach and Laguna Beach. And you've heard in the news, like in the Huntington Beach area and different coastal regions, we've had a prevalence of anti-hate, White Lives Matter posters being passed around, KKK, and all these things. So we don't tolerate that in our district and in the state of California, and we join with the Arab American community for this moment to recognize the importance of fighting hate. As an Asian American myself, we've dealt with the anti-hate violence against Asian Americans because of the misinformation and confusion on social media about blaming Asian Americans for the COVID crisis. And it's something that's very sensitive for our office, and we want to recognize those and award those people who have been fighting the hate in our community. So on behalf of Assemblymember Cody Petrie Norris, I want to give a certificate of recognition to all the awardees. I have them here, I won't read them all, but I know that we want to give one to the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee for this Alex Odeh Memorial Conference. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So glad I'm not the only one mispronouncing everybody's names. It really makes me feel at home. Thank you, Sammer. And I didn't realize we had a judge and also a Kuwaiti dignitary here. Let's talk about them. That'll be a lot of fun. Any non-Arabs here? All you really need to know to get along with Arabs is just one of 5 words, or these 5 words. Anything that ends with Allah, Yallah, Smallah, Wallah, Inshallah, and Shalom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next awardee is going to be introduced by a woman who I don't know how long I've known you, a little while, but you're always familiar. Every time I see you, it's always a pleasure. She was the founder of the LA chapter of the Jewish Voice for Peace, the JVP. Does a great job. She also hosts a Sunday talk show at 1 p.m. on KPFK called Middle Eastern Focus, and she's fantastic. You guys give a hand to Esty Chandler.
Thank you very much. Phil Weiss is a novelist, a nonfiction writer, and co-editor of the Goldstone Report, the legacy of the landmark investigation of the Gaza conflict, along with Adam Horowitz and Lizzie Ratner. He got his start writing for the New Republic, and later contributed features to New York and New York Times magazines, as well as Harper's and Esquire. But most importantly, to us in this room, In 2006, he began writing a daily blog called Mondaweiss for the New York Observer website. Soon, Mondaweiss began to focus on Jewish issues, like the disaster that was the Iraq War, and Jewishness, like Zionism, like neoconservatism, like Israel and Palestine. In the spring of 2007, the Mondaweiss many of us has come to rely on for news and analysis about Palestine, Israel, and related U.S. foreign policy unavailable in the mainstream media, where we're certainly not going to find diverse perspectives about the struggle for Palestinian human rights, which includes a Jewish anti-Zionist perspective. We can argue about whether Mondaweiss grew inside the progressive Jewish community, becoming a critical resource for the movement for justice for Palestinians, or whether Mondaweiss helped cause the progressive Jewish anti-Zionist community to grow by teaching us about Zionism and connecting anti-Zionists to one another. But I think we can all agree that we love the result either way. The godfather of Jewish Zionism, Theodor Herzl, said, "Anti-Semites made him Jewish again." And Phil Weiss has said that neoconservatives made him Jewish again. And I can say that along with Jewish Voice for Peace, Mondaweiss made me Jewish again. Please welcome Phil Weiss.
Thank you very much. This award is in Rachel Corey's name. That's very humbling. We all know what her family and she lost because she cared so much about this issue. And I just want to talk a little about my community and the losses I've had, which don't compare to the losses that so many of others have had in this area. I've lost some jobs over the years. You know, it's big. It really doesn't feel like that much compared with what so many others have lost. But I've also lost some of my own community, and I just wanted to tell one story about the Jewish community, which is my community and originally, and now my community is a lot larger. When I came out here the other day, I stayed at a friend's house I hadn't seen in a while. And a guy I'd known in journalism out east. I love this guy, but I avoid this subject with him. And we were walking on the beach, and he said, do you want to go out for Thai food tomorrow night, Friday night? And I said, actually, I hadn't told him what I was doing. I said, actually, I'm looking forward to having some Arab food. And this was at the Shaheen welcoming dinner last night. And he said, Arab food, what's that? And I said, you know, I expect there'll be some, I mean, I don't have Aaron's command of all those words. I said, well, I guess there'll be some hummus and some falafel. And he said, aren't those Israeli foods? And I just said no, and left it at that. But I found it very upsetting. I don't think he was joking. If he was joking, it's even worse. I think he's just ignorant. But the reason I tell this story is just that it's really a reminder of what this community I was so proud of that has made me, that I really, the values that I grew up with, that I was proud of in my community, were intellectual achievement, social commitment to social justice, and Zionism has really destroyed those things in the Jewish community. And that you could make a joke like he did about something that has been so painful to other people is really, it's soul-crushing. And I do think that my community, which at some level I still love, has lost its soul. The organized Jewish community has lost its soul because of Zionism. And therefore, the loss of that community, which has happened in my life to some degree and another, is a grief, but it's also an awareness that this community is in deep trouble, the Jewish community, over this issue. Jafar Farah from Mosawa said today that we have to liberate Jews from this in Israel. And certainly the victims of Zionism we know who the principal victims are, but my community has also been devastated by this ideology. And I think we all know how we overcome this, and that's for Jews to make the journey that I have made. The only place they can sort of get their soul back over this is by meeting Palestinians, talking to Palestinians. So this has been very important work for me personally, and I'm honored that you would honor me, but I know that it's just, I thank you very much. It's what a lot of members of my community should be doing. Thank you.
One more time for Phil. Now let me introduce you to your national president of ADC, Samar Khalifa. Khalas.
So for those of you who don't know, Aaron is actually an ADC baby. He grew up within the organization. His father was one of the original leaders of ADC, Omar Kader. So it's my honor and privilege to give out the next award, the Dr. Hala Maksud Leadership Award. And I take this award very personal and dear to my heart, because I was actually an intern at ADC when Dr. Maksud first came on board as national president. And I'm proud to consider her one of my mentors, as I grew up and eventually would become the national president of ADC. So I'm very honored to also present this award to our next recipient. Suhaira actually talked to me about introducing her, and she said, just make me sound great. Well, it's not that hard, but I can describe her probably in two ways. One, she's Palestinian. Two, she's a troublemaker. Now I say that with endearment, because many Palestinians are in fact troublemakers, but they're good troublemakers. And she came to ADC because she was making trouble. At the time, she got sued by an IDF soldier for defamation. So we got in touch with her. I believe it was Raymond Jallow who introduced us to her. We got her an attorney who's Haitham Faraj, who is not here unfortunately, but he is one of our national board members. And I would say that relationship went very well, considering the fact that they actually not only won the case and it was dismissed, but they got awarded attorney's fees. Now all they have to do is try to collect that, which is a whole different problem. But for those of you who do not know Suhaira, she is a social media superstar. She has thousands upon thousands of followers. She's constantly involved in social media, making comments and commentary about what's happening in Palestine, about other progressives. And she's consistently making trouble. But trouble that we are proud of and we will continue to be proud of. So it gives me great pleasure and honor to introduce to you our Dr. Hala Maksud Leadership Award to Suhair Nafal.
You know who I want to be trouble for the most? Israel. That's who I want to be trouble for the most. Thank you. Of all the organizations from which to receive such an award, I couldn't ask for a better and more honorable organization than the ADC, so thank you so much. What I do on social media day in, day out is not easy, because I have to see coming down my feed, because I follow journalists like Philip Weiss, and I follow social media users from Palestine, and I see the news coming out of Palestine 24/7. So it takes a lot out of me emotionally. It's exhausting, but I can't not share that content and show the world and my followers what's happening, so then they can share my posts, and so on and so on. Social media has now become mainstream media. But however, while I struggle emotionally almost daily doing this, a couple of things happen periodically, and I get messages, private messages, on my Facebook inbox from kids from Gaza on social media thanking me, whose homes were just bombed. Kids from, fathers, mothers from Sheikh Jarrah, whose homes were just taken, and they message me to thank me for what I'm doing, and that brings tears to my eyes every time I get these messages, and I get them probably once, twice a week. What an honor. But the messages I receive that even make me more excited about what I do are messages from everyday Americans who have been lied to for 73 years about the occupation, who have no idea about Palestine, who see posts that I share, again, posts from amazing publications like Electronic Intifada, or posts for my followers and my Facebook friends from Palestine. And they tell me, had it not been for your posts, I wouldn't have known about Palestine. And as a result, I'm now pro-Palestinian, and I'm now a part of your movement. And that, to me, is what keeps me going and keeps me wanting to be not just a troublemaker, but a part of Israel's biggest problem, which is social media. So thank you so much.
I wanted to bring up the chairman of the board. Is Dr. There he is. Put your hands together for Dr. Safa Rifka, the chairman of the board. Or should we call you Sanach?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, West Coast, for this great gathering. My name is Safa Rifka. I'm a fertility doctor in Washington, D.C. I have the honor of being elected the chair of the board, serving with the finest women and men who have volunteered from our community to help and to serve. I would like to recognize each one of them because they are instrumental in the success of the organization. So board members, please stand up and I will mention each one by name. Okay. Khalid Safouri, Tawfiq Barqawi, Shaba Atiyah, Alma Turko, George Majid Khoury, Lana, Wasa, Suhail, Torbia. couldn't really come for other reasons. These are the members of the board who come and pledge their time and their money to come and do the job that needs to be done. So what is the job? The job is simply fighting for the rights of Arab Americans, preserving their heritage, their culture, and in the broader sense, fight bigotry on all fronts, for all religions, for all sects, and for all races. And to fight for equality of women, because there is no equality and there is no issues in it unless women and men are equal in every aspect. So we work for that. So 2 years ago I stood here and I promised you a few things. First we said we're going to open an office in California, in Orange County here. I want to tell you that the office is opened and it is staffed and we have pictures of it, so thank you for your support. The fundraising 2 years ago yielded an office in California. Thank you. In the last 2 years, we've done two important things. We have hired someone to look after legal policy with the administration or with Congress. What is legal policy? Of course, it's going to Congress and trying to make sure that legislation is friendly to us. But then, more importantly, we have one thing on the agenda. We are fighting to designate Arab Americans as minority business status. This means a lot for our community. This means you can access funds, you can access loans, you can have contracts, you'll have a lot of advantages. This is not an easy job to do, but we have hired recently Chris Habibi. Where is Chris? Wherever you are. Chris has worked for New York Governor Cuomo as a relationship between the governor's office and the United States Congress. He comes to us with good experience. And Chris, we are relying on you to pull that trick, okay? We want to give a present to our community, hopefully in the next year, to have Arab Americans as designated as minority business status. So, help us with that. The second thing we have launched is a new program. And the program is a Media Watch. And the Media Watch is simply to register everything that is said in the media that is kind of derogatory to Arab Americans and to religions, Islam, Islamophobia, and races too. So how do we do that? We hired somebody that looks at the media every day. They tabulate and they keep a file, and we are very soon going to have the website of this Media Watch, which is a function of ADC Research Institute, ADCRI. And you will see it on a new website. I'm told in 4 weeks, the website will be ready. These things have been in existence now for 3 to 4 months. We're learning in it. Hopefully we will put a weekly release or a weekly magazine or a weekly press release about everything that is said, which is not favorable by anybody here or abroad. So we're going to have a file on people who want to make us look bad. These are the two things that we are doing. Of course, these programs need help and they need support. And where does the support come from? You and us and our community. So I'm here in front of you asking you to support the organization. We are an independent body. We're secular, and we are for our community. And we need all the help so that we can continue doing the programs. And hopefully every year I sit in front of you and launch another program. So with this, I'm asking you to think and to pay. And I wouldn't ask you for anything that I will not do myself. So I here in front of you, I pledge this night from my own funds, $5,000 for ADC, and I will take all the contributions while I'm here. So here to be accountable. Samuel wants to say something.
Real quick, we've instituted something new. You're going to see going around and on your tables these envelopes with a pen. So if you'd like to make a donation, please fill it out. The other option is if you see the QR code right there, or we have these little cards on your table, just focus your camera from your phone onto these, and it'll take you straight to our support page where you can make a direct contribution right from your phone, and it'll go right to us. Whichever makes you happy, whichever makes it easy for you, please go ahead and do it. You can actually focus on the video screens as well, and that works as well. So, with that. So here.
Good evening, everyone. As you heard, we have a lot on our plate, and we need your support and your help. We're going to make it very short, very quick, so we can go to our dinner and continue the beautiful program we have for you tonight. As Safa mentioned, this is all volunteer work. We're not paid people. We support the organization like you do. So please be generous, and let's make it quick, and let's go.
Our people are passing to collect the envelopes. One thing we want to try to do next year is to beef up our legal department. We need more lawyers to work all the cases and to make sure to have the good intake and to do the proper guidance. And that costs us money. Hopefully, we will raise tonight the salary of the lawyer. And if we do, next year I bring that lawyer, he or she, here to thank you for your donations. Thank you.
Let me start with the first donation from board member George Majid Khouri, $5,000. Thank you, Majid.
Haytham Faraj, one of our board members, 5,000. Dua Taha, she's now in Egypt, she's the secretary of the board, 1,000.
Michael Newman, Dr. Michael Newman, $1,000. Thank you very much. Please keep them coming. And
okay, our mentor and my friend, Dr. Jallow, pledged $5,000. Thank you, Ray. We have a signature here which we cannot read. $2,000 from a credit card that starts with 5218.
Khalid Safouri, thank you. I have a donation from Tariq and Lina Hijazi for $500. Doris and James Bitar, $1,000. Thank you. $100. Thank you very much. My friend Ayad Jabir, $2,000. Thank you very much. I have Kareem Asaili, $1,000. Jad Asaili, $1,000. Thank you very much. Judge Cato, $250. Thank you very much. Michael Khoury, $500. Thank you, Michael. And Mona Khoury, sorry, and Mona Khoury. Thank you. Ghassan Tobia, $500. Thank you. My friend Julian Movsesian, who was the recipient of the award 2 years ago, couldn't be with us tonight. He's donating $10,000. Nicholas Dibbs, $100. Thank you, Nicholas. Mustafa Nizam, $25. Thank you, Mustafa.
Those who want to donate, just raise the envelope so that you can come to the table and collect them.
Let's go. Are you hungry? Okay. I have Donna and Sohail Tobia, $10,000. Keep them coming, please. Please remember, you can continue donating during dinner. We're always welcome that. And I don't know if you use the QR code to donate, but I have another generous donation from our Diane Shamas, $20,000. Thank you, Diane. I see some hands in the back. We have 2 more minutes. Cash donation for $50. Thank you very much. Ibrahim Day, $1,000. Thank you, Ibrahim. Alma and Khalil Korkur. Alma is a board member, $1,000. Thank you. Sophia Habbas, Mazen, $500. Thank you very much.
So proud.
Norman Tamber, $1,000. Thank you, Norman. Hani Nasrallah, $100. Thank you, Hani. Any $100, $50, $25 helps us a lot. We have a lot to do, and we really promise you a lot of work ahead of us, and we want to make you proud and make our community proud as we've done it for the past almost 40 years. I think I see one more coming or two, and then We promise you. Suhair Nafal, $1,000. Thank you, Suhair. Well, we really thank you very much, and you've been quite generous. We appreciate every dollar that you donated, and hopefully we'll be up to the job, and we will make you proud, and we will help our community as much as we can. Keep them coming during dinner if you haven't had the chance to donate. Thanks a lot. Oh,
Thank
we
you.
have one more. Sir and Fadia Odeh, $2,000. Thank you very much. Marcel Hasboun and Mario Hasboun, $50. Thank you very much.
Thank you, bon appetit.
One round of applause for everyone. Thank you very much. Oh, one more. Sorry. Advocate Law Firm, $500. Thank you very much. And credit card, $500. No name. Thank you, whoever you are.
Call up Mr. Jafar Farah, the founder and general director of Masawa, the Advocacy Center for Arab Citizens to Israel. He's got a special presentation he'd like to make to ADC. Mr. Farah.
Good evening. Khaled, I would like to thank you for putting us in touch with the ADC. Nabil and all the great team that did a great job to put us together for the whole day and this lovely evening. Give us also, thoughts about future cooperation. We are usually in Haifa, so all of you are invited to visit Haifa and to visit Palestine. But we thought in the way what we can give you for the new office that you will open again. And I hope that you will open more and more offices all over the US, because we back home need you to be so active everywhere in all districts. So we went to Khalil and we brought this gift written here على هذه الأرض ما يستحق الحياة. This is Mahmoud Darwish. I think everyone understands Arabic, or should I translate? I should translate. Okay. There is something that deserves to live for on this ground, on this earth. So I hope that the office will contribute to better future for all of us. And remember that we back home, we want our homeland to look better. So keep the great work. I hope to see this in your new office, and we promise to send you more to your new offices all over the country. Thank you.
so much. Let me bring up our next presenter to present an award, an ADC National Board member, local here, Suhail Tubia. Suhail? Where is Suhail?
We love you, Suhail.
I love you too. Who is this? Because a lot of people love me. I know you to love. I'm pulling your leg. Anyway, before I introduce our next recipient, I'd like to acknowledge among us Karina Frank. Please, Karina, stand up. Karina Frank is campaign manager for a gentleman I met recently. I was very impressed. He is the first Arab American to run for the Orange County Superior Court. His name is Brahim Baitiye for judge. So he is quite impressive in the fact that he is for fairness, equality, and he earned his win by doing unbelievable work in Orange County for the past 25 years. So please visit the website. As you know, we cannot endorse any candidate, but I can tell you my personal impression, I was very impressed. Please go to www.brahimbaitiye for judge and make up your mind. Thank you. The ADC is happy to present this year's Dr. Raymond Jallow Lifetime Achievement Award to a friend of mine, Amira Matar. The Dr. Raymond Jallow Lifetime Achievement Award is presented annually to individuals who have demonstrated exceptional success and leadership throughout their careers. Amira came from Beirut to Los Angeles having a French education. She started her first job at Bank of America while continuing her education at UCLA. She is a mother of 2 children and a grandmother of 5 and a great-grandmother of 2. In pursuing her profession, Amira was determined to climb the corporate ladder, and with her energy and ambition, she succeeded in a male-dominated business, as you know. She excelled and rose to unprecedented executive levels and counted among her clients some of the most prominent business leaders in Southern California. Her endeavors were not just in the business world, and most importantly, what she did is she was actively involved in numerous philanthropic organizations and fundraising to improve the life of others. She is very proud of doing that. Amira's professional development led her to become one of the most accomplished businesswomen in the Lebanese American community. She held various executive positions, such as Senior Director for an American Swiss-based capital assessment management company. Previously, she held various executive positions within some of the largest financial institutions, including Bank of America, Wells Fargo Bank, City National Bank, and BNY Mellon Bank. America is one of the founders and board members of various cultural, civic, and charitable organizations. To list some, the Lebanese American Foundation, the House of Lebanon, and has chaired several fundraising events, including the Pride of Heritage Gala honoring Ambassador Gilbert Chagoury, with President Bill Clinton as the guest speaker. The other one is the Los Angeles Beirut Sister City. The third one is the LA Cedars Rotary Club. And the last one is the California Lebanese Ladies Organizations, benefiting the homes of the elderly in Lebanon. Many other organizations also, Lady of Mount Lebanon and the Lebanese Ladies Cultural Society that I've been involved with through my late mothers. And Amira and my mom were very good friends. Amira's virtues include her philanthropic activities, her acumen in financial management, and good judgment. In her spare time, she loves to play tennis but her pride and joy would be in spending time with her family. Amira lives in Beverly Hills area. Amira, please welcome Amira with me.
I can't say I'm not nervous because I am. Good evening again. It is a great pleasure to be with you on this very special occasion, the Alex Odeh Memorial Convention. Thank you, Mr. Sohail Tobia, for the wonderful introductions. Dear guests, my deepest respect to the entire representation of ADC, Dr. Safa Rifka, Mr. Samer Khalaf, Mr. Nabil Muhammad, for the exceptional work you do. You are committed to the protection of civil and constitutional rights. You are highly commended for your fight against the abuse and discrimination of Arab Americans. My exceptional gratitude to Dr. Raymond Jallow for this humbling recognition to bestow upon me the Lifetime Achievement Award. This award replicates the great and noble man you are, Dr. Jallow. I am earnestly grateful for this recognition that I have received, especially among so many other honorees. I am very proud of this award, and I will keep this moment deep in my heart throughout my lifetime. It means the whole world to me. Thank you, Dr. Jallow, for your support to ADC and to me. I have faced several challenges in my life, but each one of them has only strengthened me to make me an activist for humanity, which made me proud to hold up this award as a symbol of my commitment to humanitarian help. Life of others matters a lot to me. I thank each one of you for this recognition. Thank you, ADC, for the work you are doing for our people. You are needed now more than ever before. From deep in my heart, I thank you for this award.
As usual, Dr. Jallow has a few kind words also to say. Unfortunately, he's unable to come here. Dr. Jallow, the mic.
Am I allowed to stay here?
Yes, you can stay here and say what you have to say. We're looking forward to it.
Where's my cane?
Heard what Amira said. She said she's nervous being behind the podium. Nervous? Last Sunday, she managed an entire affair to honor retiring president from the University of Lebanese American University in Beirut, with all the audience were attending to her words, one by one. She is not retired. She is not helping other people. She still raises money for needy people, and she would not shy away from when she was asked by Chairman Safa if he would submit his to the administration for a new position in the new administration in the financial business. I just want to add my congratulations and my good wishes as Dr. Topia. And I think ADC has gained a tremendous awardee. And we hope we have more like Emma. Please give her hand.
What a day, huh? You're gonna take my job over here, guy. You know what I mean? We have just what, 2 more awards? Yeah, just one more award. Well, our next presenter is going to present the Alex Odeh Memorial Award, and she's an ADC. Yeah, Orange County Board member. That's what I was gonna say. I'm just. Yeah, ADC OC board member. You guys put your hands together for Alex Odeh's own daughter, Helena Odeh.
Memorial Award is presented annually to individuals who demonstrate exceptional leadership, public service, and commitment to the ADC and the Arab American community. We are here tonight to present this honor to Diane Shamnes. Over the course of her career, Diane has worn many different hats, such as a fashion designer, business owner, and most importantly, an activist, which started in the 10th grade where she slept on the floor of the Machinists Union to stand up for what she believed in. Earning her PhD in International Urban Education, Diane wrote her first Arab American Muslim study post 9/11. She continued to advocate for others while living in Gaza, where she taught ethnic studies. Diane also wore the philanthropist hat, offering her generosity to charitable organizations, including the Palestinian Children Relief Fund, Black Lives Matter, and the Native American Partners. I believe no one deserves this award tonight more. Please join me in applauding Diane Shamnes tonight, the recipient of the Alex Odeh Memorial Award.
Because I got a big mouth, anyone who knows it. And I do want to, I'm going to focus on the importance of coalition building and relates to the great Alex Odeh and also Nick Shamnes. Any of you know him? Anyway, against the historical backdrop of the app scam controversy, ADC was born to provide a public voice for the Arab American community in the U.S. on domestic and foreign policies. But over the years, ADC, to their credit, they realized that Arab Americans could not just remain in a vacuum, focusing on their own racism, anti-racism. In fact, James Abarizik, who my father actually contributed to, to his senatorial campaign and made it possible, along with other Arab Americans in 1974, to be the first senator of Arab American descent in South Dakota and in the U.S. James Abarizik, in fact, had launched his social justice career first by championing the rights of the American Indian constituents. Apart from our widely diverse United States and our uniquely different ethno-histories, we all share a common thread of humanity. And to this end, it is incumbent upon us to all fight against all forms of racism: anti-Black, anti-Latinx, anti-Asian, anti-Indigenous, anti-Semitism, and anti-Arab. Alex Odeh, who served as ADC's West Coast Director, epitomized coalition building. Professor Odeh worked tirelessly towards interfaith unity among Jews, Muslims, and Christians. On the same day of Alex Odeh's brutal assassination, which according to the FBI's investigation was allegedly perpetrated by the JDL, a Fountain Valley synagogue had invited him and honored him to speak. That day, Professor Odeh valiantly perished in the pursuit of coalition building. My own activism was largely shaped by my father, Nicholas Shamus, a Depression-era kid born in 1915 of Lebanese immigrants who spent his early years in boarding houses, precursors to the foster care system. After his father had abandoned him, my aunt, and my grandmother. In purchasing his first new car dealership, Felix Chevrolet, in downtown Los Angeles. As a new kid on the block, he was confronted by the Old Boy Network on Figueroa Street, Carr Road. My father wanted to join the hoity-toity downtown LA Rotary Club, but they declined his membership application. In fact, they would have been overjoyed if my father had failed in his newly acquired dealership. As my father put it, they probably did not even know who Lebanese were. They probably thought it was a disease. My father's first dealership, Felix Chevrolet, bordered on South Central LA. So it was the Little Big Rotary Club, whose membership were predominantly African American, invited my father to join their club. To the dismay of the naysayers, my father's Chevy dealership thrived. In addition, he opened 8 more car dealerships along Figueroa Street. At the same time, my father wanted to serve the Mexican American community, who were the backbone of his economic success. He helped launch MAPA, the Mexican American Political Association, and served on Ed Royval's campaign, who was the first Mexican American elected to the U.S. Congress. My father also broke the color barrier by enlisting the prize fighter of the world at the time during the 50s, Joe Louis, to host his TV commercials on Channel 5, which broadcasted the wrestling and boxing matches at the Olympic Auditorium. This was in late 50s, mind you. In 1974, my father also, as I said, had contributed to the campaign of James Abarizik. Posthumously, along with 3 Jewish Americans, my father was honored as one of the visionaries of Los Angeles. Apart from the rebellions against racial inequality in the LA. It never crossed my father's mind to commit white flight and relocate Felix Chevrolet. He said that is where he started, and no way he was going to leave. Felix Chevrolet still stands at 33rd and Fig, as we call it, Figueroa, celebrating this year its 100th anniversary, I guess. Filling my father's shoes was a tall order. As far as I can remember, my activism began as Helena, Odeh had just announced, began in driving up with my 10th grade civics class to Delano to distribute toys to migrant farm workers' children. And I remember my dad, which, you know, was very rare because my dad worked like 24/7, you know, he helped kind of pack all the little toys and everything in the back of the trunk of our 10th grade civics teacher automobile. Little did I know that when our class arrived in Delano in 1968, we were in the midst of the Cesar Chavez great boycott, and slept on the floor of the Asbestos Workers Union Local 132 in solidarity with the striking migrant workers. Growing up in the greater Syrian community during the early 1960s, I was mindfully aware of the Palestinian Nakba. There never ever was one doubt in my mind to not support Palestinians' right to self-determination. Even there has been, as you know, acrimonious relations with Lebanese and Palestinians during the Civil War. So in May of 2009, when the opportunity arose to join Code Pink's delegation to Gaza, I jumped on it and fulfilled a dream by traveling each year for months at a time for 6 consecutive years. Gaza became a second home for me. I assisted Gaza Community Mental Health Program in analyzing survey data and drafting manuscripts to submit to the UN, 1 year in particular to Judge Goldstone after the 2008-2009 Israeli-Gaza war. Friends continuously would ask me, what is it like? Aren't you quaking in your boots? Amidst the somnolent hum of encircling drones, the Zananas, as Palestinians refer to them, and the roar of the F-16s overhead, poised to release bombs on command. The scrambled issues on my TV set were a constant reminder of Israel's surveillance drones. When anxious thoughts of imminent death would stream through my mind, I would cope by blocking out what I was living in a war zone. You always had to remind yourself, do not be scared. You owe it to Palestinians among who you were living that this is their reality for now 74 years. It would be downright cowardly and dismissive, always mindful that I could always leave Gaza, which clearly was not an option for Palestinians. I will never forget what the owner of the neighborhood corner store, to console me, he was a former Fatah intelligence officer, related to me, if you hear the descending whistle of falling bombs, you will know that you are still alive. The overall generosity and caring of the Palestinians, I will never forget, as they always were worried about the foreigners, the Anjabis. It taught me to treat each day of life as very special and not to be squandered. As for Palestinians, as long as there is the Israeli occupation, there may never be a next day. Palestinian resistance and mood is beyond formidable. So it is with much pride, honor, and humility I thank ADC, the wonderful Odeh family, Helena, her mother, and 2 sisters. God bless you for bestowing on me the Alex Odeh Humanitarian Award. I'll remember this night for the rest of my life. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and good evening to all of you.
know, my dad went to USC, my brother too. Those Felix, I had no idea. I didn't know that. Well, you guys, thanks so much. You guys did a great job, better than me. You ate, you laughed, you supported each other. Keep donating, and please drive safe to your hotel room. No, thank you guys. God bless. You want to say anything more? Oh, what are we talking about? We have our keynote. No wonder nobody wanted to get up. Jeez, I had one foot out the door, didn't I? Ladies and gentlemen, one of the people actually was excited to see here, and I think you ought to introduce him because you'll be more sincere than I am. Yeah, you will, because this guy is fascinating, interesting. I've seen so many videos. I've seen so many YouTube videos of the guy. He's fascinating. He's got books. I don't know the titles of his books. Are you going to be selling them?
Yes.
He's got his books here, and
well, first of all, what can you say about the man? He gives a whole new perspective to the Israeli-Palestine conflict, one that has scared the bejesus out of a lot of people, because he tells it how like it is. He comes with credibility from what his background is, and he's been an incredible advocate on behalf of justice everywhere, not just in Palestine, but also in Israel and everywhere else. What more can I say but to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Miko Pellet, and he is in fact selling his books, The General's Son, which he's willing to also sign out back, so please, we encourage you to buy his book. Thank you very much.
For the introduction. Thank you all for being here. I really don't think an introduction is necessary because as I walk around, I think everybody here knows me. I certainly know a lot of you. I feel like I'm among friends here, really. So it's really a pleasure and an honor. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be and see so many wonderful friends. And thank you, ADC, for putting this together. It's so nice to be in a live event. So having the courage to put this together, and everybody, obviously, the community responded. And of course, we all know ADC does tremendous work, so it's always a pleasure to be part of an ADC event. This is not the first event that I've been to. I've been going to ADC. I used to go in Washington, D.C. to the big ADC convention, and as people were coming up here to receive their awards and gave the talks. Obviously, it was quite inspiring, and it reminded me of something I heard at an ADC conference in Washington, D.C. many years ago, when the late, great Clovis Maksoud spoke. And he spoke about the constituency of conscience. And that just struck a chord with me, and I never forgot that statement that he made. He was talking about the constituency of conscience. That's exactly what we've been seeing here tonight. As they were talking about as the San Diego Union Tribune was up here receiving the award, they were talking about the price that journalists have to pay for their honesty and for the work that they do. I felt that it was important to mention one particular journalist who has suffered and who continues to suffer greatly. His name is Julian Assange. And I think it's important to remember the important work that he did for us and the enormous price that he continues to pay to this day, languishing in a prison in the United Kingdom. I have to give a shout out to all my San Diego friends. I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't know what I know, I would not be speaking for Palestine, I would not have known Palestine if it wasn't for the wonderful Palestinian community that welcomed me and adopted me and kind of helped me to take this very difficult journey from being really deeply rooted in Zionism and in the state of Israel, and taking these baby steps towards this unknown, which is realizing that the truth is actually on the other side. The truth is not where I came from. And the San Diego community just did a tremendous accomplishment with the actual building of the House of Palestine. So I want to ask everybody to give him a hand. It's a project that I remember has been being talked about maybe 20 years, maybe even more. And it's truly miraculous. And it's like there's a piece of Palestine now, an actual piece of Palestine in San Diego, in Balboa Park, thanks to the incredible work of these wonderful, dedicated people. So I love you all, and thank you for being here, and thank you for teaching me everything you did and everything that I know. Also, this is, to me, very meaningful to be part of the Alex Odeh Memorial event. The story, the personality, what we know about Alex is obviously very inspiring. And his brutal assassination, and knowing that one of the culprits is still alive and well and living in a settlement near El Khalil, in a Zionist settlement hiding there. And it really in many ways reflects the story of Palestine. And it's almost impossible to remember and commemorate all the tragic victims, those who have paid this enormous price and their families as a result of the brutality and the Zionist violence here and elsewhere, and of course particularly in Palestine. And there's this impression that was created as a result of the enormous violence that Palestinians have to live through, that this is the Palestinian story. That the Palestinian story is a story of violence, it's a story of death, it's a bloody history. But that's far, far from the truth. The bloody history in Palestine is not the Palestinian story. The bloody history in Palestine is the Zionist story. And what we see, what we know now, is that Palestine has had a glorious, magnificent history. The book by Dur Masarha that came out a few years ago, a 4,000-year history of Palestine. He quotes Egyptian sources, Assyrian sources, the great Greek historian Herodotus, Aristotle, who all referred to that country by its name, Palestine. We know that for the last several hundred years, Palestine has been innovative, creative. There has been a creative, innovative society, agriculture, relations with other countries. The Nakab, which they pretend was somehow, some kind of a deserted desert, but is actually a very, very fertile desert, was exporting barley to the UK. Other parts of Palestine were exporting oil and cotton. And everybody around the world referred to Palestine as Palestine. The story of Dahir al-Ammar, who really turned Palestine into a powerhouse in the 18th century. When we look at aerial photos taken by the British when the British occupation of Palestine began, particularly in the Nakab, we see enormous tracts of cultivated land. The story of the Zionists is not that they came to Palestine and made it bloom, is that they came to a blooming country and they stole it. As they say in Arabic, أخذوها مفروشة. أخذوها مفروشة. Shamelessly, violently, they stole money from the banks. They stole the produce from the fields. They stole cities. They stole agricultural machinery. They stole everything. They did not make the desert bloom. They stole a blooming desert. And suddenly, on the 15th of May 1948, a glorious history of 4,000 years became an historical footnote. Nobody remembers. Nobody knows what happened in Palestine for the last 4,000 years. All that people talk about is the biblical mythology and then modern-day Zionism. Nothing important happened. Everything is being taught, everything is being discussed in this context of mythology and lies. I know, as I grew up and was raised in the Israeli education system, nothing significant happened for 2,000 years. The Jews were kicked out, and then the Zionists came back.
And this is what we hear. This is what politicians talk about. This is what is happening in the education system here in America. This is the true story. This is the true narrative, and we have to reverse the narrative. We cannot go on letting the Zionists push forward this narrative of lies, of mythology, at the expense of a glorious narrative of Palestine. A narrative that includes tolerance and culture and various religions. And as we look at the glorious monuments that still exist, the ones that the Zionists have not yet destroyed, look at Al-Aqsa. Look at the compound. Look at the mosque. Forget for a moment even the religious significance. This glorious monument that has been crowning Jerusalem for over 1,000 years, 1,500 years. And there is serious talk about destroying it and replacing it with some other hocus-pocus temple. That, by the way, the most Orthodox, the most religious Jews reject. It's part of the Zionist narrative to bring back this temple, because that is how we will truly show that we're back. That is how we will truly have gained our sovereignty in our ancient homeland. What ancient homeland? It used to be, the discussion used to be that it was only crazies like the violent, very violent and dangerous JDL and some, Kahana types that were talking about the destruction of Al-Aqsa. Over the last several years, this movement to destroy Al-Aqsa and build a temple has been gaining enormous support in Israel. Tens of thousands go on their tours, these provocation tours, where they stop and they pray. And I actually took a tour by mistake. I was in Palestine in May. I was in Palestine twice recently, once in May and once in July. And I decided to go on during visiting hours to walk around the Al-Aqsa compound. There's a great deal that's been happening, of course, with the uprising in May. Al-Aqsa was the center of focus. And I didn't realize that you couldn't go anymore unless you went with one of these tours. And as you walk, some of you may know this, as you walk from the wall, the Jewish wall, towards Al-Aqsa, there's a bridge, and halfway up the bridge, they built this enormous model of the Jewish temple, and you have to stay there and wait, and you walk along with these lunatics, settlers, and an enormous armed guard, and you go through the compound, and nobody else is allowed on the compound as this is going on. These people are in the cabinet, they're in the Knesset, they are making decisions. And the question that I always ask myself is, what needs to happen in Palestine so that people stand? In May there was an uprising. I'm sure all of you remember. Palestinians paid a heavy price. A heavy price, as they always do. But it was a heroic uprising. A heroic uprising. While it was going on, and certainly after that, there were huge protests around the world. Record numbers. I was there as the bombs were falling in Gaza. I was in Jerusalem, texting and talking to people in Gaza, friends, less than 100 kilometers away, and of course unable to do anything. But the question that I ask is, what are we doing protesting after the fact? Protesting after the fact is too late. They already killed these children. They already killed people in Gaza. We need to stand up and prevent the next attack. That's what we need to be doing. We need to demand that our elected officials do everything they can so the state of Israel has no bombs, no planes, no tanks, no bullets. They cannot attack Gaza anymore. What needs to happen before that takes place? Why is there no-fly? How come they don't impose a no-fly zone over Gaza? How many civilians need to die? How many? How many more? What more needs to be destroyed? The state of it, people like to talk about a status quo. Status quo? There's no status quo. Palestine is burning. They're destroying Palestine like Roman legions going through the countryside. Thank God there's still Al-Aqsa. But you know how many of these magnificent mosques, magnificent churches, ancient cemeteries have been destroyed and are being destroyed as we speak? Because they don't want anything to remain that reminds the world of this glorious history that preceded 1948, May of 1948. They do this by design. They pretend to care about archaeology, and they have all these archaeological museums and sites. It's not archaeology, it's mythology. They destroy the real archaeology. Ask the people in Silwan, where they built this ridiculous biblical city of David. Ask the people in Silwan, they'll tell you how many historical, crucially important archaeological sites and monuments around Jerusalem were destroyed in the area of Silwan. Why are they after Sheikh Jarrah? Magnificent neighborhood. The beautiful Orient House, Dar al-Tifl al-Arabi, all part of Sheikh Jarrah. Hind Husseini Women's College, in Sheikh Jarrah, the beautiful American Colony Hotel. Sheikh Jarrah, the mosque and the place where Sheikh Jarrah was buried is in Sheikh Jarrah. They want to destroy it and build condos for settlers. I have friends who live there. Every time I was there twice, I went to visit them, and you see the settlers seething in the beautiful Palestinian homes. This beautiful Palestinian name. Why do they want to destroy it? Because it demonstrates that there was something better, more beautiful, more significant that existed before this brutal apartheid regime was established in Palestine. That's why they are destroying this. So what is it going to take for our elected officials to understand that we will not accept this any longer? Any elected official that dares to associate themselves with Zionism needs to be told that Zionism, like anti-Semitism, like white supremacy, and all forms of racism, there should be no tolerance. There should be zero tolerance. Just like we talk about zero tolerance to any other form of racism. Can you imagine an elected official that prides themselves that they're anti-Semitic? Or that they're white supremacists? But they're proud to say that they're Zionists. Zionism is a form of racism. It's brutal. It's violent. I think we all saw Phil Weiss, the emotion of talking about Zionism and how it destroyed what it did to the American Jewish community. There is a reason why hundreds of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews in New York, in London, in Palestine rejected Zionism from the beginning. You know, in the year 1900, Zionism was very young. In the year 1900, the most important rabbis of the time came out with a book, a short book that they published in Hebrew, which is rare because they only use Hebrew for prayer. And in this book, they warned the Jewish communities around the world from the dangers of Zionism. And you know what they said? 3 things. They said Zionism will bring violence to the Holy Land. They said Zionism will ruin the good relations between Jews and Arabs and Muslims around the world. And they said Zionism will create a reality that the loyalty of Jews is being questioned in the countries in which they live. Because Jews are called upon by Jewish law to be good citizens wherever they live. The idea of sovereignty in the Holy Land is prohibited for Jewish people according to Jewish law. This was in 1900 they came out with these 3 warnings. They weren't prophets, they were smart, they had eyes, they read. They saw what the Zionists were saying, they read what the Zionists were writing, and they knew exactly what Zionism was going to bring to the Holy Land, and they rejected it then, and they still rejected it, and they still continue to reject this. You know, I want to recommend a couple of things. You know, this book by Nurma Salha, Palestine, 4,000-year history. I think it just came out in Arabic as well. It's a must read. Mansour Nassasra, who's a Palestinian Bedouin from the Nakba, also wrote an incredible book about the Palestinian Bedouin in the Nakba. Information nobody even knows. People don't even consider the Nakba as part of Palestine. And a wonderful book by Fatma Qasim, Dr. Fatma Qasim, also who teaches in the Nakba, who lives in Bersaba, about women's narratives about the Nakba. Women's narratives. She interviewed women in Ramle, in Lid, who survived the Nakba. My friend Ibrahim Daya is here. The first time I ever heard about what happened in Lid, the horrible massacres that took place in Lid, was from Ibrahim many, many years ago. I visited Lid just now during my last visit, and I had an opportunity to interview Fidash Hadeh. Fidash Hadeh is an incredible Palestinian woman. During the uprising of May, she was the voice. Young woman, she's a council member of the city of Lid. And she took me around. This incredible city with an incredibly rich history. So in front of the mosque where the terrible massacre took place, the state of Israel established like a big plaza. And the plaza is named after the Jewish terrorist group that committed the massacre in Lid. The Palmach Plaza. In front of the mosque, where this horrific massacre took place. Never mind, there were massacres, they were murdering women and children in the streets like there was nothing. And she was optimistic. I said, what are you optimistic about? She said, well, during the uprising in May, or the actual uprising of May, brought about a new generation into the resistance, a new awareness, new collaboration. People don't even realize, people forgot that Lid and Ramle and Yafa and Nasra and Haifa, Bersaba, the entire Nakba, which is almost 60% of Palestine, is Palestine. It's all Palestine. It's all Palestine. We have to bring that back into the story, into the narrative. I don't have to tell people here are from these places. Or your parents came from these places. I remember going to, the first time I started going to ADC conferences and other Arab conferences here in America, you see the tiny little kids running around. Where are you from? I'm from Yafa. I'm from Haifa. I'm from Askelan. I'm from Asdod. Little kids, 5 years old. They can't even read a map yet. But they know the village, they know the town, they know where they're from. We need to remember and remind people. Not only because it's true, but because the reality is that Palestinians in the Nakba, for the last several years, over 2,000 homes have been demolished only for Palestinians in the Nakba. Palestinians in the Nakba have no access to water. Almost over 100,000 Palestinians in the Nakba, who are citizens of the state of Israel, live in towns, in villages that the state refuses to provide them with health care, education, access to water, access to electricity. If God forbid there's an accident, there are no roads. We're not talking about 1,000 people, 100 people. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of Palestinian citizens of Israel, forgotten in the Nakba. And when they stood up, as they did, well, they did several times, but last time when they stood up in May, the beatings, the arrests, of course, house demolitions, and they brought settlers from El Khalil, from the West Bank, into Bersaba, into Lid, hundreds of them, armed in order to instigate and provoke and kill. And then the Palestinians are blamed for violence. I don't know if you all saw, but there was this magnificent shot of a young man in Lid climbing up the flagpole, taking out the Zionist flag and putting in the Palestinian flag. That was a great moment. Nobody thought that Lid could do that. You know the famous rap, the rap and dam, Palestinian rap musicians down. Tamer, who was from Lid, said when he heard Tupac, he thought he was talking about Lid. It's that insane what is happening there. So we have to remind people, and we have to take this role of explaining because nobody else is going to do it. Sometimes I think we expect somebody else to come and save Palestine. If we don't save Palestine, nobody will save Palestine. There is nobody else coming. There is no Salah ad-Din coming at it. We are the Salah ad-Din. Nobody else is going to come and do it. We are the ones that have to demand that our elected officials reject Zionism before we even let them in the door. We have to demand that. You know, the great Ghada Karmi, a professor in London, who I interviewed as well, she says this so beautifully and so clearly. There must be zero tolerance to Zionism. We must reject Zionism. We must demand our neighbors, our friends, our politicians reject Zionism, just like they reject anti-Semitism and other forms of racism. Zionism belongs in that same column. Now, Palestine has been through a lot over the last few months. We saw the uprising in May. We saw the beating, the brutal beating and murder of Nizar al-Banat in the PA prisons. We saw the heroic escape of 6 Palestinian prisoners from Gilboa prison. What is the lesson? What is the lesson when this is taking place? What does it mean? What does it say to us? What does it call upon us to do? You know, I have to tell you the story. A couple of years ago, I was in London, and my friend Bassem Tamimi and his daughter Ayat, I'm sure you know Ayat Tamimi, or you know of her, they were in London as well, and we were all invited to iftar. And we went to the iftar, and the Palestinian, the so-called ambassador, because he's not an ambassador, he's the head of the PLO office, was invited as well. And they asked Ayat to say a few words. Of course, she was very famous. You know, she slapped a soldier, she sat in jail, and so on. And this young lady, she was 17, in a room full of mostly men, Fatah people, and the so-called ambassador, the representative of the Palestinian Authority, said, look at us, what do we got? We're stuck between the occupation and this corrupt Palestinian Authority. A young girl, 17 years old, we talked about, a journalist here from the Union Tribune talked about speaking truth to power, that everybody should speak truth to power. The 17-year-old stood up and said it. And this was before Nizar al-Banat. We need to change the conversation, my friends. The PA is not solving any problems. It's not designed to solve problems. It can't even if it wanted to. We have to change this from the paradigm of this ongoing, nonsensical conversation about 2 states. We need to put it aside and forget it. It's a myth. It's built on a Zionist construct. I know because my father was one of the people who invented this notion for Zionist reasons. And we need to bring back Palestine as Palestine. Palestine is an entire country. It was an entire country. It needs to come back to become another country, a single country. And forget this nonsense about Israel. Israel is an occupying power. It has been from the very beginning. It's a regime that should not be tolerated, should not be legitimized, should not be, and should be rejected completely. When people ask me, when I say Palestine, what do you mean? I say, what do you mean, what do I mean? Palestine is Palestine. There's no such thing as Palestine and Israel. There's a Palestine. Now, if you accept Israel, then by all means, you have to know, or the people that do must know, they're accepting that Palestine, all of Palestine, is a violent, brutal, racist, apartheid regime. That's what you recognize. That's what we legitimize when we use the name Israel, when we recognize the state of Israel. That has to be made absolutely clear. If we believe in justice, if we believe in freedom, if we believe in human rights, we cannot call that country Israel any longer. It is Palestine, it must be considered Palestine, it must be called Palestine. Every day, all day, and all the time. Some of us here, some people here I know from Washington, D.C., you know when you drive down Wisconsin Boulevard, where the PLO office used to be, again, they called it an embassy. It was never an embassy. Nobody there had diplomatic status. I don't know if you noticed, but they left the flag hanging on the flagpole. It's been 4 years, I think, since Donald Trump kicked them out. The flag is in tatters. You can't even tell that it was a flag. It's this piece of cloth, just string, hanging on a flag post. It's the most humiliating, embarrassing thing I've ever seen. And in a way, every time I drive by there, I have to stop and look. It symbolizes the reality of Palestine in Washington, D.C. Because that's all there is. That's all there is. Nobody is there fighting for the refugees. Nobody is there fighting for the prisoners. Nobody is there fighting so that Palestinian children will have access to water and education and health care. Nobody is there fighting for Gaza. Nobody. It's just a piece of cloth in tatters hanging over a building that used to house not an embassy, not an office that represented the Palestinian people, I'm sorry, an office that belonged to the PLO, to the Palestinian Authority, which had zero authority. We need to do something about this. It's up to us. Every single person here who's Palestinian, every single person out there who's Palestinian came from somewhere in Palestine. Whether it exists, whether it was destroyed, we need to own that. We need to come back to it. There's a wonderful organization called Zochrot. It's a wonderful, wonderful Israeli organization, Israeli-Palestinian organization. And I shouldn't say Israeli. It's an organization that supports the idea of return. It supports the idea of commemorating the villages and towns that were destroyed. They have a project now called Envision Return. What the return is going to look like. What the villages are going to look like when people come back. How the villages are going to be rebuilt. That's what we need to be teaching our kids. That's what we need to be thinking about and talking about. Not peace with Israel, the return of the refugees. Not peace with Israel, how to free Gaza. Not peace with Israel, how to free every Palestinian prisoner and make sure that no more Palestinians are in prison. Some of you, I think, know Yad Burnat. Yad Burnat is a great freedom fighter from the village of Bilain. And he made a name for himself, as a freedom fighter. He was in jail many times. He was here in the U.S. He spoke a lot at the time. And his two sons were in prison recently. And when I was there in July, one of the two was released. After 50 days, after being held for 50 days in Maskubia. Maskubia is a prison in an area it's called Maskubia because the area used to belong to the Russian church. And that's where the prison is. And that's where the torture chambers of the Shabak, the secret police is. And by the way, not that it's not bad enough as it is, it's actually in downtown Jerusalem. It's right around all the bars and restaurants and where people go out to have fun. It's right there. You sometimes wish that they had a system where they could hear the screams of the kids being tortured as they're sitting in the restaurants, in the pubs, and the bars. Because this is where Israelis go out. So, my friend Bassem Tamimi and I went to visit the Yad in Bilain to see his son. And I remember this boy when he was this big, his father would not allow him to come to the protests, because there used to be protests every week. He used to beg to go, he said, no, you stay home. Now, a young man, good looking, designer clothes, he shows up, very polite, hugs and kisses and shakes hands, like young Palestinian, very proud. And then Bassem, of course, Bassem sat in jail, his father sat in jail, and he goes, so how's the Maskubia? Half jokingly. The look of horror on this young man's eyes, in this young man's eyes, on his face, I cannot describe it to you in words. Suddenly, this brave, proud young man had a look on his face like he saw the most horrific death. Just for a moment, fear and horror that is, you can't describe in words. You just saw the glimpse in his eye. Being held for 20 hours a day, for 50 days, and interrogated on a small chair, tied up. I said to him, what have they got 20 hours a day to interrogate you about? He said, no, they don't interrogate me for 24 hours. You sit there for 20 hours. From time to time, they come in and ask you a question. How many more generations of Palestinians are going to have to go through this? His father didn't do enough, that previous generation didn't suffer enough, the previous generation didn't suffer enough. How many more are going to have to go through this before we say enough, before the world says enough, before American politicians say enough? It's not enough just to talk about it. We have to act. We have to demand more. And the problem is that we've gotten used to accepting less and less and less. Israel does something terrible, eases up a little bit, and we think it's an accomplishment. That's the reality. More and more we're accepting less and less from Palestine. We need to demand all of it, unconditional. All of it, unconditional. That has to be the name of the game. Unconditional return, unconditional release of prisoners, unconditional freeing of Gaza, ending the Gaza siege. That has to be the name of the game. That is the only way that we can win. No longer a flag in tatters in Washington, D.C., but a proud, beautiful Palestinian flag that represents pride, that represents the beauty, that represents the history of this magnificent country that so many of you call home. We must act because there's nobody else is going to do it. We cannot ask the PA to do it. They can't, even if they wanted to. We can't ask the Israelis, we can't wait for the Israelis to agree. There has to be a demand for boycott. There has to be a demand for sanctions. There has to be a demand for divestment. Now, not tomorrow, right now. Aaron mentioned the Olympics earlier. There was a moment in the Tokyo Olympics that I think will be remembered forever as the most heroic moment, perhaps in any Olympics. Fatih Nurin, Algerian judo practitioner, refused to participate, refused to compete against a member of the Israeli team. He would not get on the mat with a member of the Israeli team. We all know how hard he must have worked to get to the Olympics, to be an Olympic athlete, and to say, no, the buck stops here. I have principle. I will not legitimize the flag. I will not legitimize this team. I will not legitimize the state. And he was suspended from judo for 10 years, him and his coach. They paid a heavy price. That's what sports should be about. That's what the Olympics should be about. That's what martial arts should be about. That's what we need to demand from every athlete. If the Olympic Committee allows Israel to enter the Olympics, then the athletes should refuse to play. If they're allowed into the World Cup, then teams should refuse to play. That's what we must demand. But we can only demand it if we do a good job of explaining, if we take back the narrative, if we stop accepting so little as satisfactory. We cannot be satisfied by anything less than 100%. Palestine is a country from the river to the sea, from the Jordan, from the border of Lebanon in the north to the Gulf of Aqaba and Murashash in the south. It is a very well-defined country. It's Palestine. It can be free. It must be free. It will be free. But we all have to act. Thank you very much.
There's really not much more to say after that speech, other than thank you very much for your generosity. Thank you very much for coming. Have a safe trip back. May God be with you, and please don't forget to keep donating, whether online or in person. We really need your support. Thank you very much, and God bless.